everybody, and welcome to the Pieverse. My name's Perry. I'll be hosting you tonight, and I'm going to basically be having a new topic on here, and I think you're going to find this interesting. This is a mixture between strategy and maintenance and care and feeding of your portfolio to meet your strategy goals. So the title of this video is called When Not to Rebalance Your Income Portfolio, and getting a good understanding of the value of what a buy and hold strategy is. So it's a very interesting thing to understand. I know a lot of people, hello again, Perry here. So the reason I want to talk about this topic is because a very critical strategy within the income portfolio when you're working with covered call ETFs, when you're working with anything like this, is the concept of buy and hold. So unlike any other kind of portfolio that you're using, like a growth strategy or stuff, there's a lot of value in buy and hold, because when you're buying these covered call ETFs, you're buying them for the income that they can consistently generate. Even if their income is variable in nature or slowly declines or whatever it is, the important part to know is that they are always generating income. So you're buying almost like income assets. Therefore, when you buy it, unless there is some kind of reason why you would want to get rid of it, you generally would have the intent to hold it infinitum. Hold it until end of days. Again, that is the intent. It doesn't mean that you're always going to do it. But I'm going to show you a good example here on why buy and hold is a very important strategy. And I'm going to use this video to actually explain that. So what I'm going to do, and you can see the little icon above here where it says it's called the swap trap. And this is going to be my example to show you why buy and hold is actually very important when you're looking at maintaining your income portfolio. You can see my little icon there. It says CONY and another covered call ETF called TQQY. So we're going to be using it as an example where I've held this ETF called CONY from YieldMax for almost 2 years. I've held it for 22 months now. It's had some really glory days. It was a darling child inside the YieldMax product offering. Had very good yields at the time, sometimes in the 90s and stuff like that. I can't remember the exact number. And then for some reason in 2025, CONY started eroding. Even though coin, its underlying, went up and down, had some major drops and it came back and stuff. CONY for some reason kept on dropping in value. I have a yield on cost of it of almost $29 in one of my accounts, and yet right now it's really gone down to almost $10. And again, I'm talking Canadian, so bear with me for my American subscribers. I'm using Canadian pricing, not the American pricing, but for some reason in 2025, it kept on dropping and dropping and dropping. And in one of my portfolio accounts, the one I'm going to use and give you the demonstration in, it's down already 64%, which you're going to turn around and say, wow, Perry, why are you even holding on to that old dog? At 67% NAV erosion, NAV drop, why have you not gotten rid of it and got one of those new darling childs that are out there? So I want to actually show the reason why buy and hold is good, even in scenarios where you've got a covered call ETF that's had shown some major NAV erosion, and why it's not just a foregone conclusion that if they're basically eroding, it's time to dump it, take your losses, take the proceeds and go jump onto something new. So this is what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to follow that scenario and show you why that's not always the case and why you might actually get caught into what's called a swap trap. So a yield trap or a swap trap. So this is what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to my spreadsheet. This is my portfolio spreadsheet that we're going to be using. What you're looking at here is a zoomed in component of one of my accounts in my entire spreadsheet, one of my RIFs. And I want to show you these two examples of what we're going to be doing an actual simulation on. So the one that I'm talking about down here is the old dog. So this is the one at the very bottom, number 35, CONY. Remember I said I've held it for 22 months already. I'm going to be using this account here later, but these two are identical accounts. The reason I'm showing you this one is this one actually has TQQY, so I can actually show you yields in this one versus the other one I can't because I haven't got any shares in it. So CONY is right here. I have 400 shares of it. I've held it for 22 months. I bought it at a cost of 20 on an average cost of $29.30 Canadian. That's $21 American. So for this account, I've put out $11,700 to buy this CONY in this account. Its current value is only 1044 Canadian, and its NAV is 4,177. So when I paid 11,000, there's only 4,177 of residual value left in this thing. So it is down a NAV value drop of 64%. So here it says is that I've actually lost $7,500 in CONY since I've held it over the last 22 months. Now, before anyone turns around and says, oh my God, see, that's why you shouldn't be buying these because of NAV erosion. So before people start saying that, I'm just going to switch over here and just going to get some numbers here to, let's say, shut up the naysayers about this. So the first thing I want to point out to you here before we get to my example is, yeah, CONY is down 67%. But here is a very interesting, lovely statistic right here. What you're looking at here is saying how many years or months am I away from basically reaching house money. In other words, when do I reach the point where CONY has paid me more in distributions than I paid for it? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it already accomplished that 0.8 years ago. So that makes basically by the beginning of 2025, it has already paid itself off. I have made more money in CONY in this account, and I'm just going to go all the way over to here. I have made $14,639 in distributions on this account. I have other accounts, but in this account, I've only lost $7,000 on this one. But remember what I told you, remember here, I've received $14,600 in distributions. Remember, I only paid $11,000. So currently, for most of 2025, this CONY with a NAV erosion of 64% has been basically paying me house money for most of 2025 because it doesn't owe me anything anymore. So that is why the first thing I want to tell you is that NAV erosion here, the 64% means nothing because I'm already every month. I'm going to go over here. Sorry, I'm just going to find it right here. So every month, I got to find it. Here it is right here. Every month, this CONY in this account is paying me $252. Its average is $307. It has gone down, and it's definitely been going down over the months, but it is still paying me $252 a month, even though I've already been paid off fully, and it keeps on doing it. So this is one of the reasons I talk about buy and hold. Why would I sell an ETF that, even though it's eroded 67%, is still paying me out $252 a month, even though it's already fully paid me out about 6-7 months ago? And I'm right now, basically, this is house money. This is money that literally is bought and paid for. So that's why the one reason to do buy and hold is because I still get paid, even though CONY is eroding and continues. Like, we're hoping it's going to stabilize, and it looks like it has stabilized. But even if it were not to stabilize and it were still to keep slowly crawling along, it owes me nothing. So that's an important thing to know. Okay, so you could see here my yield on cost is 25%, meaning that if based on how much I paid for it, my current distributions would only have a yield of 25.8%, which what yield on cost is telling you is how much you over or underpaid, or in other words, how bad of a deal you got buying these shares versus how good of a deal you got buying these shares. Because right now, if I were to pay $29 a unit for distributions of this, I would only be getting 25% yield. I would never buy CONY at $29. Now, would I buy it at $7.49 US or $10.44? Well, if you do, you're going to be getting a yield of 72%. So anyone that buys CONY right now, and assuming that CONY would now stabilize and start behaving, you're still going to get a 72% yield on CONY if you buy it at its current price of about $7.49. So that's an important thing to know between yield on cost and yield. Yield on cost has no actual merits with regards to how much you're actually going to get paid every month. Yield is the one that tells you that one, because it's basically distributions times your number of shares you hold. This is just telling you how good or how bad a deal you've got, because, based on the price drop since you paid for it. All right. So let's forget about yield on cost. Let's focus on yield. Now we're going to do a simulation. If I turned around and we're going to use the yield trap model. If I turned around, I'm going to switch over to another account that doesn't have, I was going to say, TQQY is going to be our guinea pig of saying, hey, why don't we get rid of this old dog called CONY? And why don't we switch over to this new guy called TQQY from Granite? They basically are offering over a 56% yield. So why wouldn't I switch over to something like that? It's new. It hasn't eroded. It's actually gone up in value. So, hey, this is a darling child. Now, if I were a growth investor, that's the way I would be thinking, because I'd be saying, hey, I want to get off this old train that basically keeps on dropping in NAV. And I want to go to the one that's stable and new and fresh and stuff. So I'm going to switch over to TQQY. But I am not a growth investor. Let's get that right. I am not a growth investor. So as an income investor, I want to know which of these two, CONY or TQQY, is going to offer me the best monthly income. How much money, dollars in hand, am I going to get out of each one of these? If I were to say, let's turn around and sell all my residual CONY and we'll buy TQQY. And let's find out which is better. So, time for the nerd hat. I'm going to switch over to my other account. And the reason I'm switching to my other account, it's almost identical to the one I just showed you. It's another riff of mine. It doesn't have any TQQY. So I'm going to use that empty cell to show you a what if scenario. If I sell these 400 units of CONY at its current price, I'll only get $4,100 out of it. And I'm going to use that to buy the equivalent number of TQQY shares that are currently running at 26 Canadian. And I'm going to put that number here. And you're going to see these NAs turn into how much money I'm actually going to get if I were to do that scenario of getting rid of the old dog and moving in the new dog. Okay, so here we go. The formula is equal. I'm going to take the current NAV of CONY. So this would be the equivalent of me saying I've sold all 400 of my CONY units. I will end up getting $4,177. If I turned around and said, take that money and buy the equivalent number of the TQQY units, which I'm going to say divide that by TQQY at its current Canadian price. I'm doing everything in Canadian. For you Americans, it really doesn't matter. You could do everything in American and Canadian. Everything I'm doing here is in Canadian. So I'm dividing the current Canadian residual price by the current Canadian TQQY price per unit. It's not $159.7. It's just 157 units. So I can buy 157 units of TQQY if I sold my CONY. All right. So I'm going to plug in that number over here. Now, before I plug in the number and give you the drum roll, I should get a drum roll thing here. Just remember, currently, my CONY is producing on latest distributions. It was generating me $252 a month. On average, over a 6-month average, it's been generating $307. So that's my CONY now. If I now turn around and bought those 157 units of TQQY, drum roll please, here we go. I would be making a whopping $196. Do you see the problem with this idea of rebalancing? If I were to rebalance and sell out and close my CONY position and switch over to TQQY, the new pony, the shiny penny in the barn, instead of getting $252, I would still only be making $196. Even though TQQY is stable, it's new, it's actually been going up. But the problem is, at the end of the day, it's still only offering me a yield of 56%, and CONY is still offering me a yield at 72%. So it doesn't matter that this guy's the old dog, and basically has been eroding. It is still producing me better monthly actual dollars than this guy at the same price using the same residual value from CONY. So this is why I turn around and say to people that buy and hold actually has a lot of meaning. It has a lot of value, even though CONY, let's say CONY even decides to keep eroding slowly. I think they've actually been stabilizing, but even if they slowly started eroding and actually dropping down another 1% over the next month or two or whatever, at the end of the day, it's still maintaining, and in this scenario, it's still maintaining this 72% yield. So it is not worth it for me to sell out CONY and go to something else unless I found another covered call ETF with a higher yield than 72%. I would actually be hurting myself. Now, you could see, for example, I could switch over to this one at 80. Well, that's ULTY, ULTY. It's also got an erosion issue, so I'd be just jumping from one erosion issue to another erosion issue, so that makes no sense. I would make a little bit more money, so that might be a reason. But other than that, I'm just jumping. If the purpose of me jumping is to move to a shiny new penny that has no erosion issues and is actually growing and stuff like that, again, this is why I keep telling people that are growth investors when they say, Perry, why do you mean NAV has no value to you? NAV is not the driving factor in my income portfolio because NAV doesn't tell the story of what matches my goals. My goal is to generate income every month, the maximum income. And because something has a poor NAV is not helping my income in any way whatsoever. My income is what counts. So does NAV matter to me? Of course. I would love to see my NAV up. I'd like to see CONY back at its $29 Canadian. But that's the real world is it's not going to happen. But what it is telling me is that NAV is not determining how much money I'm going to get out of this ETF. It's basically the yield. And the yield here is 72%. And the shiny new penny is only 56%. So moving from this problem child to this one that apparently isn't a problem child is not helping me in generating the maximum amount of monthly income. Now, and this is why I really want to have this video. When you are running and actually growing your income portfolio, your covered call ETF income portfolio, you need to do these simulations all the time because at the end of the day, if your purpose of income investing is to generate income, you got to be crystal clear and that is your goal. Your goal is not to generate the most amount of NAV. And when some of the growth investors keep around and keep saying, but it's underperforming growth. Well, at the end of the day, it would matter to me if I was focused on growing my NAV, but I'm not focused on growing my NAV. I'm focused on maximizing and growing my income. So keep your focus, keep your goals focused. If you're an income investor and you're generating maximum yield and maximum monthly income, and you're trying to grow monthly income, why would you move from something that's generating you 252 to something that's generating 196 just so you could protect your NAV? Why? What value was it for you as an income investor? Okay, I'm hoping that helps. I know there's going to be a lot of questions. Please leave your comments down here. Tell me if this was of any value to you. I know this is pretty nerdy stuff that I was trying to show you here, but I wanted to try to show you how this works and give you sort of a day in the life of doing rebalancing assessments. Rebalancing is very important, and there's many times where rebalancing helps. A lot of times rebalancing has its greatest value if one of your covered call ETFs is actually increased in NAV, not decreased, but increased. Because at the end of the day, a covered call ETF that is literally has experienced a lot of NAV appreciation is not helping your portfolio generate income either, and which is, again, It's ironic, and this is why growth investors and income investors should not be talking to each other with regards to who is better, because an appreciating covered call ETF might be very valuable for a growth investor because their whole purpose is about increasing their unrealized gains on NAV. But for an income investor, that provides no general added benefits because your income is not really going up unless you actually have more units of whatever it is that's generating your monthly distributions. So you need to do your own assessments, and you need to do your rebalancing simulations to make sure that what you're doing is the right thing to do. All right? I hope that helps. Hope my nerdiness didn't put you guys to sleep. But anyways, again, look forward to your comments. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. I'm focused on a lot of income investing strategy. This is what I like doing. And if you find it interesting to learn strategy about income investing with covered call ETFs, then please subscribe and watch some of my other videos. And until next time, stay safe, stay investing, and I'm going to see you in the Pieverse.